Hi everyone, my name is Nomkosi Xolugama and welcome to Notes from a Pad. Okay, so today I'm here to update you on the book launch that took place last week. This video is a bit overdue. I thought I was going to do it like the following day, but time was not timing. Okay, so guys, firstly I want to start by saying thank you to all those who attended the book launch, because I know I posted the poster here on YouTube as well, and I think people who follow me here are people who are actually in my very close circle, so they would have seen the posters on my WhatsApp but also on my Facebook. So ngiyabonga kakhulu kubo bonke laba abaphumelelile kwi-book launch, and I also want to say ngiyabonga nakulabo abangaphumelelanga but inhliziyo zabo ebezifuna ukuba lapho base bebanjwa indaba yama-commitments. Thank you so much, guys. Just briefly, the book launch took place last week, Tuesday on the 17th. Iqale ngo-4 ntambama, yaphela ngo-6 ntambama. And the book launch was virtual. So it was not hybrid, it was virtual. We were all online. I was launching my third book, which is titled Hostels in South Africa. This is the book that I was launching last week, Tuesday. So, yeah. It was a success, guys. I think this is the most important thing that I want to share with you. I think those who attended, they understand, they saw it, they witnessed that it was a success. So it was a success in many fronts. Firstly, it happened. Secondly, we all kept to time. Even with the audience. Thirdly, our authors, they showed up. Fourthly, there was engagement. There was nice engagement there. And fifthly, I think most of us enjoyed ourselves because, Mina definitely as an editor and as an author, and as a person who was behind organizing the launch itself with the assistance of the press. I think we really enjoyed ourselves and we were really happy to see the book launch manifesting successfully, regardless of whatever challenges that might have happened. So that's the first important thing to acknowledge. It was a success and I am thankful. I'm actually thankful firstly to the UCT Press, which has published the book and also which did the organizing of the book launch. So ngiyabonga kakhulu UCT Press for that. And I also want to thank obviously Professor Fiona Ross for emceeing, for being the MC in the event. Thank you so much. I think she handled it well. And we appreciated her contributions from when we were planning it until the end of the book launch. So thank you so much. Solwazi Fiona Ross. What's in digress? Because channel yamne. Fiona, so she called me. She called me on the day, earlier, few hours earlier, 3-4 hours earlier. She calls and she's like, hey, Nomkosi, how are you? I'm just checking on you. Kulo mzuzunami ngibhizi ngiyatatazela ngiprepare launch phela. I'm like, oh my God, izohamba kanjani? Bazofika abantu bazosigcina yini isikhathi yabo nje kubhizi la engqondweni yami. Yet I'm still trying to kuhlanganisa ukuthi kulesikhathi esincane nginaso, what are the key points engizowasho. So mase ngiyamtshela ke mina uFiona ngithi mina, hey, yazi ngi-anxious but I can't wait ukuthi sifike lesikhathi esidlule. Athi ke naye umama athi nami ngi-anxious. It's Naibo. Now anxious. Guys, I'm sorry. I had to share this. Anxious why is the MC? For God's sake, chairperson where UCT Press. So uyijwayele lezi zinto. And also ngimdala usolwazi and mina bengithi into yabo le phela usolwazi noma into yabo le futhi abantu abajwayele ukuba in these spaces angazi but ngahleka ngathi ngamtshela ngathi ayike mekuthi u-anxious angisa-understand now u-anxious nami ngi-anxious so I'm not sure when is kuphatha program. So it was quite nice. I think lawo mazwi akhe were very encouraging to me because it's like she was there. She was there in the processes of planning for the launch. So it was important to her as a representative of UCT Press to make sure that it becomes a success. So I'm excited, although but anyway, I would like to just express my gratitude to her. And most importantly, also, I would like to express my gratitude to the Dean, Professor Shoze Kesi. I'd like to thank Ushose for making it, for attending the launch. She was invited, and I invited her and I asked her to give us some welcoming remarks as the Dean of the Humanities of UCT. And she agreed, she agreed, and she's like, okay, where can I find the book? And she wanted to read on the book so that obviously she can give relevant remarks. And then just she made it. I was very grateful, especially because the first week of the academic calendar is always the busiest for academics, but especially for management. We had expected that there was going to be protest, and indeed there were protests. So, but that didn't disturb her plan of making it into the launch. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the support. And then I would like to thank obviously Ama Authors. They showed up as they had promised, which they were going to show up. Thank you so much. Ama Authors, as you guys can imagine, but this is an edited book. So in our chapters are 9, which have been contributed by different people. I contributed 2 chapters, which excludes the introduction and conclusion. I said, I contribute some chapters out to Nami, and then but the rest were my colleagues in the field. So yeah. Kulungile ke so yaqala ke i-book launch, meyiqala i-book launch sivulela uyena MC wethu, mengabe qedwe MC wethu ajikjela ibhola ajikjele kumphathi we-humanities faculty uProfessor Shose Casey uKesi avesana naye nkosi yami. It's like I realized that when she read the book she went over and beyond nje ama comments akhe, ama reflections akhe, they were so deep. She showed that now she understands the subjects because she did read up on it, so I really appreciated that. And then emva kwalokho then ngase baliphosa kumini ball, so ngakhuluma briefly mina ngakhuluma at that time to introduce the third speaker, who was going to be Arisitas, so Professor Arisitas. Some of you guys might know, relationship yam goes a long way back. So I had asked him, not as a former supervisor, not as a former party, I had asked him as a contributor in the book, but also somebody who had started writing on hostels ngama 80s. So I asked him to set the scene for us. There was item number 2 or 3, depending how you count. So, and then and then he set the scene. He spoke about the hostels and the history in South Africa and how there have been changes and all of that. And then was say so as an editor of the book. So I introduced the book, and then I also introduced my own specific contributions, chapter contributions. Like I said, my chapters are chapter 3, I think, and chapter 6. And then, yeah. And then I had decided to actually open my talk. When I started, I was like, okay, for those who have not seen the book, and for those who didn't attend the launch. So I have a poem that I wrote, which I put in this book. I mean, it's the only poem that we have in this book, other than the one that was quoted by Ari. So the poem I wrote it's titled Hamba Mntanami. I wrote it in Zulu, and then I translated for the people who do not understand Zulu. But I did explain in the launch that I wrote the poem at the very end of the writing process, and primarily it was because I did realize that there's a bit of lack in terms of representation of the voices of women and children in the book, which is already something that is a big gap that has been identified by a couple of people who have read my work to say, okay, you've done really nice work in the hostels, but we don't hear enough from the women and from the children. So in this book, I think we had the same gap, so I thought, okay, let me write this poem to kind of almost make up for that. But actually, the poem Shame it deep. I think it deep because it begins to engage with the very issues that affect the same women that people are complaining which they are not hearing enough from. So the poem is about rural urban migration. The poem is about labor migration. It's about paid work versus unpaid work, social reproductive work. It's about parenting. It's about childhood. It's about adulthood. so it touches on a couple of things, you know. Umuntu wesifazane lo, it's like a lamentation or a wailing. Umuntu wesifazane lana who's actually talking or lamenting or giving words of inspiration and wisdom to their child, to their daughter who is about to leave the rural areas to go into the cities to look for a job. So if ufuna ukuyazi noma ukuyizwa ipoem, hamba kuyoyifunda page 18 of the book. So I read that poem ngavula ngayo ke, and then kushuthi nje kusukela ngaleso sikhathi abantu baqala bang-understand ukuthi nami khona okunye okuhlukile engikwenzayo ngaphandle kwaloko okujwayelekile ukuthi I'm a mom and ngiyafundisa, you know, yeah. Then, okay, moving on, then I also sent apologies for Dr. Mamphela Ramphele because she was also going to be coming and joining us, but because of traveling commitments, she couldn't make it. She has written i-foreword yalencwadi Dr. Mamphela, and abantu abaningi bayamazi ngokuthi wabhala na incwadi published in 1993 on hostels. And then Professor Paulo Zulu also, he couldn't make it because of other commitments. He's also a contributor in the book who also wrote a critical, groundbreaking piece about 1993 in hostels. And then I took time and I read my biographies as a way of introducing my authors, the contributors. I found my biographies, which are like at the end of the book. And then, okay, then you get go no contributor, go no author, go no colleague, osishile emhlabeni last year. Ubaba umdala igama lakhe uJulian Cook. So Professor Julian Cook, who passed away last year, ngacela ukuthi ke si observe a moment of silence for him njengoba sesinganayo manje incwadi publishing asekho. And then we did that, and then emva kalokho I went on and I spoke about the different chapters that I have contributed. The first one is on, it's titled Advocating for Socio-Spatial Justice in Hostels, or in the Spaces of Perplexity to be more specific. That's the chapter that I wrote. It's chapter 3, and chapter 6 that I wrote, it's titled Racialized Dispossession as an Ongoing Process at Lwandle Hostel in Cape Town. So I spoke about those chapters, just introducing them briefly. And then after that, kasi ngayidedela. Ngadedela ke izikhulumi zami eziqavile ke zosuku noma izikhulumi zelontshe eziqavile ke zosuku bakhuluma ke badedelana ke. Kwaqala uYonela noZukiswa, who have a chapter that they've written based on their research that is based on Kwalanga Hostel. And then kwalandela Unsika is doing his PhD at UKZN. He's actually completing his PhD at UKZN in criminology, also on hostels. And then kwakhuluma Bianca, Dr. Bianca Thames, ifundisa naye UCT. Also, she did some work, which is more like a critique of some of our works, those of us who have done research at the hostel. Her chapter is titled Critical Reflections, Degendering and the Crisis of Social Reproduction in South Africa's Hostels. So like her work does exactly that. It reflects on the issues of gender in hostels, but she does that through looking at primarily my work as well as umsebenzi what's her name? I forget her name. She did a master's at UNISA in the Department of Social Work. Kanye Silim Tembo, yes, I think it's Kanye Silim Tembo. That's what Bianca does. And then Saklanango Dogotelo Makanisha, Timothy, he just got his PhD at UKZN. He also did some really interesting work at Hostela using mixed methods, quals and quants, looking at the service provision and how happy people are about hostels or about the services in hostels. And then emva kalokho ke bayijikjela kumina back ke just ukuthi ngisho vote of thanks ke nami ngabonga ke ngijabulile guys. So namanje ke I'm at that moment where I have to thank you once again for listening through and watching, and yeah, ngiyabonga kakhulu ngayo yonke support.